me the wanderer, yeah, the wanderer. I roam around.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Wanderers YouTube channel. I am your host, as always, Ventura, and welcome to today's special episode, a Valentine's Day episode. Is what I would say if it was actually Valentine's Day. Yeah, you see, this episode was supposed to come out on Valentine's Day, but a certain winter storm hit Texas and my power got knocked out and services couldn't come by to restore the power for quite some time. So I was kind of left in the dark and I had to go over to my parents' house to seek shelter. That, coupled with the fact that only a few weeks later, a character that I was supposed to be doing today had to be drastically reworked because one of the stories of TOT is now entirely gouged out of TOT and we had to replace it on such a short notice. This character was very different before today, and I had to do a lot of reworks on her just to get her back up to in-depth special category.
Excuse me, the fuck did you just say?
In-depth special category.
Say it again, say it to my fucking face.
In-depth special category.
I couldn't make this shit up. I couldn't make this shit up if I tried. I'm sad that I lack the talent to make this shit up.
It was basically just a continuous downward spiral after I couldn't release it on the allotted Valentine's Day special. It also doesn't help, and also kind of throws salt in the wounds, that I also have to push back the old magic video, because before I was gonna release this Svis video, I was also promising you guys I would be releasing the old magic system videos as well. However, much like the Svis video, I couldn't release those videos because of a technicality I reached when recording them just in the audio phase. I realized to go through the entire notes I had written down for just a single system of the old magic system, I had to extend the video out to its original 15-minute length to an entire hour of content. So unless you guys want to watch a literal Wanderer podcast episode, I'm gonna have to rework that as well. But luckily for me, I'm finally starting to get back into a sense of normalcy and sense of control with the TOT series, and that is why I'm bringing this video to you now. I think I finally hit the nice balance I need to make out this in-depth, and then later on in the week, I shall finally start posting those promised old magic system videos. So yes, with all that out of the way and all the updates that I needed to say, spoken and in the open, we have a video to cover today. Today, we shall be going over the used-to-be Valentine's Day special character of Svis O'may, the wife to the Wanderer. Svis O'may was born on the galactic capital homeworld of the Vyzen, a race of almost crusader-like giants with the mysterious racial trait to harness a fourth life energy source, outside of the known three in the triangle, this energy source being known as willpower. This planet, Heimat, is a densely populated level 8 planet, 1 through 10 being the classification for civility and advancement, but also for things like population size and prosperity. And much like a fellow level 8 planet, the homeworld to the people like Neon, Jason, Salza, planet Brench, it has a steep overpopulation problem. It may not be to the same extent, but it's a definite problem of Heimat. This being one of the root causes for why at the earliest of ages, all that Svis remembers is the cold, hard stone streets and back alleys of their homeworld, raising her little sister, Shinger. Eventually, Shinger would be taken in by a nice, kind old woman, while Svis was already physically mature enough to be on her own for the most part at least, since Vyzen aged more rapidly than humans. Thanks to this, she could soon enroll in an early mystics course, and would develop her keen skills and senses that she already honed over many years on the streets. Eventually, years later, her, Shinger, and a childhood friend of theirs by the name of Rai would all enroll in a basic mystical learning program. Basically, their version of elementary school through high school. This is where they teach Weizen youth to harness their willpower and to develop their young minds, eventually helping them to develop their own unique willpower ability. Svis was already an early bloomer, and thanks to her tougher than usual average childhood and being a natural go-getter, her willpower ability soon manifested. And when she had the choice to continue onwards to the advanced learning courses, the equivalent to college on this planet, or go off to enroll in the elite program of the Weizen, the equivalent to boot camp, she took the latter option with open arms, always being the one for the tougher approach. After years of grueling training, she eventually became a member of the Weizen elite military known as the Chewin, the same organization responsible for stopping the spread of key vampirism and its leader, Parasite. Over the course of the next few years, she would develop her own powers, along with mastery over her blade in particular being named EX. However, over the years, she would advance to the role of Honor Guard, soon getting the option to get cybernetic limb enhancements with the imbuement of magic. But after this point, she began to see the rot of her people, government, and even the military itself. This all culminating when she struck the leader of the Chewin himself, Shimmerot, after witnessing him kill an enemy that they had just captured. This put her on the run from the law, and actually being the reason why she met Wanderer. And despite his code of neutrality, he felt a connection to her plight and a willingness to stare down immeasurable odds for the sake of her code. He helped her escape and brought her under his protection, the Chewin never getting their hands on her thanks to him being a natural deterrent. Over the many years of her being in his library, and even following him on adventures to go throughout the cosmos, he eventually started to grow an attachment to Svis on a much more personal level. While the Wanderer is not known for romantic involvement or attachment, it was an undeniable spark between the two, they being very similar people on the most basic of levels. Soon, her and Wanderer would get into the Weizen equivalent of a marriage, and they would never separate, even to this day. As long as Wanderer is alive, he will always count on Svis to be by his side and be there to temper his more aggressive personality traits, to be his sword and his shield. If it wasn't obvious from the latter half of that story, her and Wanderer have very similar personality traits. Both of them have a very strong sense of personal code and philosophy. Never one to back down from what they think is right, both of them leading the very colorful and rich lives, experiencing all manners of wonders and terrors. That being said, they're not entirely similar. Very few people are. She has an undeniably higher sense of morality, and a much less tainted gray sense of heroism. And it could be legitimately argued that Svis's convictions and will is even stronger than Wanderer's. If Wanderer is the metaphorical representation of the unstoppable force, and Agent Orange is the same but for the immovable object, then Svis could be classified as a representation of the irresistible force. She in many ways is the keeper of the Wanderer, his morality and his honor personified, his North Star, his compass, always there to keep him in check or keep him on the path of good, being the only person who can actually change the Wanderer's mind when set on a set path. That being said, she's not exactly pure herself. Her code is still that of a warrior. Speaking of her code, though. She's a warrior first and last. She has a deeply ingrained sense of duty and honor, with an unshakable drive for honesty and fairness to even all of her enemies. But she's also not blind to the reality of the situation. She knows that not everyone deserves a second chance, and to know when it's right or wrong to hold back information or one's own personal strength in any one given situation. In this regard, she's the perfect middle ground between the two extremes of the Wanderer and Agent Orange, having the warrior code, morality, and sense of honor of Agent Orange, but the cold realism, groundedness, and roguish personality of the Wanderer. She's not entirely bound to laws and regulations, thinking that sometimes true justice means going outside of the box to get the best outcome, unlike Agent Orange, mind you. But also, she isn't too stubborn or dead set on her own code that she's willing to be barbaric for the sake of justice, unlike the Wanderer. And to borrow the definition from our old pal, EasyDams.com, and much like her husband, she is the perfect textbook definition of neutral good. A neutral good character does the best that a good person can do in any set situation. He or she is devoted to helping others, as well as working with kings and magistrates, but does not feel beholden to them. Neutral good is the best alignment you can be because it means doing what is good without bias or against order. What this means for Svis in particular is that she is capable of being flexible for any given situation, while people like Agent Orange and Wanderer to an extent are bound by their own sense of philosophy and code. Agent Orange being a more extreme example of that, but the Wanderer has his own sort of groove that he refuses to get out of, his neutrality being a key sticking point.
It is not honorable to blindly follow a master and their orders. It is foolish. Besides, this was never a matter of honor, but of right and wrong.
If you would allow me real quick, I have a very simple analogy to describe the power set of Svis O'may. Imagine for a second if Virgil from Devil May Cry 5 specifically was given a Green Lantern ring and put into the body and physique of Wonder Woman, and given the height of Lady Demiscure from Resident Evil Village, and you have the perfect analogy cocktail for who Svis is as a warrior. As mentioned in the personality and background portion of the vid, she is a powerful sword user, with Virgil or Wonder Woman levels of combat experience and specialization in sword combat. Wielding a scimitar, katana, futuristic alien hybrid of a weapon, the standard issue for the Vizen military I might add, it has a special rune engrafted onto the length of the blade that infuses her own spiritual willpower ability into the blade to increase its durability and cutting potential. And depending upon the ability that this particular Vizen in the Chuan army has, the blade will act accordingly to the power that you have. Speaking of spiritual energy and powers, utilizing her race's special racial ability, known as willpower, we'll go over that in a different video, don't you worry. She can harness her own spirit's willpower, passion, and fury, and form it into a form of energy. She's literally powered by her own badassery and will to fight. She can use this energy to fly, shoot out powerfully concentrated beams of energy, and, looping back into my original Green Lantern analogy, can form into powerful constructs made out of the same willpower energy. And much like the other members of her race, this power can manifest into a form of hers known as Serious Mode. You've definitely seen it by now. It's when her eyes turn from amber to a sort of purple, and all the LED lights around her armor light up and turn to a shade of purple instead of blue, as well as the edge of her blade being coated in that same spiritual energy. She basically has all the powers of her Green Lantern ring, with the knowledge, experience, and the sword of Virgil put into the staggeringly tall and shredded superhuman, or more accurately, supervising strong body of Wonder Woman. And besides her willpower ability, she also has some cybernetic enhancements as well. You see, when joining the Chewin, the enlistees have to give up a predetermined body part. In her case, that would be her legs. Don't feel too bad for her though, cause she got some sick replacements that are a dream for her and a Cthulian nightmare for her opponents. It can do the same thing as her sword and channel the willpower magical energy to make the legs stronger and more durable. And with the rocket boots installed into the feet, even if she runs out of willpower energy, she'll still be able to fly at hypersonic speeds. She basically pulls an Oscar Pistorius with any opponent she goes up against, and straight up murders them and kicks your ass even though she doesn't have fucking legs. She even possesses a transformation known as Full Tilt. That name's temporary, by the way. I'll come up with a better one. This quote-unquote transformation simultaneously covers her body and fills it entirely with surrounding willpower energy, as well as Genki soul and ki energy, and turning her into a walking, talking construct of pure energy. Turning any fight she's in into the final battle in the Green Lantern First Flight movie. Flying around, launching building-sized beams at people, or throwing literal planets like they were softballs. She is, for all intents and purposes, stacked and very, very powerful, standing toe-to-toe with her tiny husband, Wanderer. But, like all things, she is not without flaw or weakness. Speaking of which... Now, you may be thinking that she has got to be the most busted character that I've covered on this show so far. I mean, what's wrong with her? And truth be told, I couldn't blame you for saying that. However, she doesn't have any problems with admitting to her faults, and neither do I. At least in the case of Svis. Like I said earlier, her powers and abilities are all driven and fueled by the mysterious fourth energy signature of the Triangle of Life that the Vizon specifically have access to. Her willpower, her fighting spirits, her determination, whatever you want to call it. It is the thing that fuels and powers her abilities. It's the source of her strength. However, when it comes to her, and unlike other members of her race, her ability is specifically controlling this fourth energy signature, willpower. That's her ability, controlling this energy source. Which means that she only has that to fall back on. It's kind of a situation where she only has one trick in her tool shed. Once she runs out of willpower, or that energy source in particular, she's not out of the game in particular, but she's not as much of a threat as she used to be. And also, this willpower energy is the crux for her entire moveset. And, in her case specifically, willpower manifests as spiritual vigor. So when you run out of willpower, you are literally running out of the ability to fight on as vigorously and as hard as you were previously. And while she has an overabundance of spirits, as well as the rest of her race, the thing you have to look out for is actually something that's harder to define. You know that feeling after a long day of hard, strenuous physical activity or work, and you just want to go down and rest, let the entire day roll by like water down the stream, not having the energy to deal with anything or anyone? That is what I define as being out of willpower. She still has the quote-unquote power to go on, but she's not in the same mind space now that she's run out of this fourth energy source. It's not physical exhaustion, but spiritual exhaustion. The fighting spirit is the first thing to go by using her powers. It takes a lot of will to go on, which is why a reason she's so spirited and willful to begin with. She has a lot to give, but everyone has a limit. Also, you could classify Svis O'may as being a jack of all trades. She's good, no, great, at a lot of things, but not a master. The only thing I'd say that she's definitely a master of is energy manipulation, constructs, and her sword skills. But that's it. She's still a powerhouse, don't get me wrong, but in this context, it's the exact opposite of what Wanderer is. For him, his body is so weak in comparison to his overwhelming ki reserves that he burns his body from the inside out till it's dust. For Svis, her power is so great and it uses so much of the willpower that courses through her veins that she runs out of spirits before her body gives. And while she could still fight on afterwards, without her literal willpower and her figurative willpower, she's not as big as a threat as she used to be. But that's about it for the weaknesses. Now, moving into some fun facts. Now, I mentioned earlier that this particular form of energy is something called willpower. However, I also want to state that every person has this sort of spiritual energy or willpower inside of them. It is the fourth energy signature of the triangle of life. In a weird way, it's kind of a combination of all three that make willpower. It's just that specifically, only the Weizen can manipulate it. It can be determined by a gene trait, or maybe it's something that their ancestors gifted upon the universe. And Svis's ability in particular is to manipulate and control this energy to create constructs and power her own physical body. In a way, that is her power. It's not just manipulating old magic energy, it's manipulating willpower specifically. And every ability in the Weizen that's regarding willpower is unique. It is very rare for two people to have the same ability. And it's just that Svis's in particular is manipulating other people's willpower and to control the very energy source that fuels all their other powers. But I'll get into the real minutia of what willpower is, what the Weizen are, everything that I can tell you about them right now in another video. Probably a very, very, very later video. Also, some of the abilities that she has are actual references to some of my favorite wielders in fiction. One, for example, called the Energy Guillotine. By using spiritual energy, she can unleash a sphere of power that once hitting a target will expand and dice and slice anything within its diameter and perimeter. That would be a Virgil reference. Another one is a much deeper cut of a technique. It's called the Lawn Slice. The Lawn Slice is a reference to Sephiroth's ungodly massive sword. By using a combination of energy constructs and willpower creation, she makes the sword so long, and then when she slashes something, regardless of distance, a cut will land. It's very weird to think about. Svis has a bunch of abilities that relate and tie into several different swordsmen throughout fiction, and we will all cover them in a later video or when the actual manga for this series shows up. So, stay tuned. And that was the story, character, and in-depth analysis of Svis O'may, the wife of the Wanderer. Tell me, do you have any comments or criticisms? Leave them all in the comment section below, and I'll get to them when I can. And a special thank you to all the artists and voice actresses in this video. They helped me immensely with making the final product as smooth and crisp and clean as it was. Or at least I hope that it was. Starting with the old, reliable classics and usuals as always, we have Six Pocket Studios, Arc Sam, Paul Robinson, and we have some returning faces as well that we haven't seen in quite some time. We have Linnaeus in this adorably cute piece. Echo Saber gave his talents, and he has been around since the second video of In Depth ever. And we have a new face on the channel, make a special welcome to GoPaz. He is going to be, well, let's just say, you'll be seeing a lot of them in the future. All these people were wonderful and absolutely courteous in giving their awesome talent to me, so please go down in the description below and give them all some love from me to you to them. I would genuinely appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Also, another special thank you to Blackscape as always for helping a brother get that gamer bread. I wouldn't be anywhere near the height I'm at right now if it wasn't for him helping me and boosting my videos at every single turn. Thank you, brother. You're amazing. And hey, when we finally, or at least hopefully, reach 1K, I may be re-releasing a certain in-depth. Perhaps the first ever in-depth. So hey, stick around for that. And one last special thank you to the amazing voice actress who lent her beautiful voice in bringing Svis to life, the official voice actress, I may add, and that she'll be lending her talent for the foreseeable future of TOT. The one, the only, Abacadabry on Twitter. She lent her beautiful voice into bringing Svis even more to life, and I can't thank her enough, or all the artists, or Blackscape, for helping me make today's video. One last special thank you to you, the viewer, for joining me on today's video. And, as always, don't forget to take time out of your day to stop and smell the roses. Till our next story, goodbye.